You tell yourself you're fine, but why does your chest tighten every time their name lights up your phone? You know they've hurt you before, yet your heart still races when they smile. Maybe it's not them you're addicted to. Maybe it's the feeling of being needed, even if the cost is yourself. We hold on, not because love is alive, but because the absence feels unbearable. Like letting go would erase a part of who we are. But what if the real wound isn't them leaving, but you leaving yourself long before they did? And this is where the illusion of love begins to unravel. Often, we aren't truly in love with the other person at all. We're in love with the image we've projected onto them, the ideal we've carried for years. In Jungian terms, this is the anima or animus at work, shaping our longing into a story we mistake for reality. Are you here because you can't stop thinking about someone even though you know they've broken you? You replay the memories again and again, torturing yourself with questions. Why them? Why am I so weak? Why, even knowing the pain they caused, does my heart still race at the thought of them? Carl Jung would offer a far more unsettling answer. Perhaps the truth is, you never truly loved that person at all. That may sound harsh, but it's not meant to diminish your heartbreak. Instead, it's meant to redirect your focus. From seeing your suffering as something caused entirely by them, to understanding that its roots lie deep within your own inner world. And this shift is the first step to breaking the cycle that keeps you stuck. Imagine your mind as a dark, silent cinema, somewhere deep in your unconscious, not in a memory box, but in a place far older. There is a reel of film. This reel has been created over the course of your life, made from the threads of every longing you've ever carried, the safety you never felt as a child, the understanding you've always searched for, the strength you admire but have been too afraid to claim, the perfect parent you wished had been there. In Jung's terms, this reel is your anima or animus, the idealized image of the feminine or masculine you hold inside. It is an archetype shaped by your unmet needs and your deepest desires. Then, one day, someone walks into your life. They have their flaws, their complexities, their scars, but your unconscious doesn't see those. To your inner mind, they are nothing more than a perfect blank screen. And the moment they appear, your inner projector whirs to life, casting your reel onto them. Suddenly, you don't see who they truly are. You see the savior, the soulmate, the missing piece you've been waiting for. You believe you've found the one, but in truth, you've found a mirror for the film you've been carrying inside all along. This is projection, a psychological force so powerful it can feel like destiny. Sometimes, it takes the form of love at first sight, that rush of instant familiarity, or the certainty that this is meant to be, isn't a spiritual sign. It's your unconscious recognizing someone who can play the role in your inner movie. It feels intoxicating because it bypasses reality entirely. You're not building a connection, you're stepping into a dream. Projection also reveals itself through idealization. You magnify their virtues, turning ordinary traits into extraordinary ones, while ignoring or downplaying anything that disrupts the fantasy. Red flags become invisible because your mind edits them out, keeping the story pure. You cling to the highlight reel, unwilling to watch the unfiltered version. But sooner or later, the illusion cracks. The projector falters, the real person comes into focus. And they are not who you believed they were. This is when the heartbreak feels unbearable. But here's the truth. What hurts most is not that they changed or deceived you, but that the story you projected has collapsed. You're grieving the loss of the illusion, not the person. The intensity of this grief often matches the size of the void inside you. The more emotional emptiness you carry, the more desperately you cling to the person who seems to fill it. This is why letting go feels like losing a part of yourself. Because in a way, you are. You've tied your sense of wholeness to a reflection, and without it, you feel exposed and incomplete. But this realization changes everything. Instead of asking, "Why did they hurt me?" you begin asking, "What inside me was drawn to them? What does my real say about my wounds and my desires?" This shift doesn't blame you. It frees you. It means you are not powerless. You don't have to wait for them to give you closure or for time to erase your feelings. You can begin right now by turning inward, by reclaiming the projector and deciding what story you will play next. And in moments of emotional crisis, when toxic love, emotional trauma, and the pull of nostalgia make you feel trapped, this understanding becomes your lifeline. Healing is not about erasing them from your memory. It's about seeing the screen for what it is, recognizing the projection for what it's always been, and gently taking it back. Only then can you begin to love from a place of truth, not illusion, and choose someone, not because they complete you, but because you are already whole. Yet the moment the psychological projector has cast them as your idealized image, another question rises quietly from the depths of your unconscious. How do I keep this image alive? How do I become worthy of the perfect illusion I've just created? The answer is the persona, the social mask. If projection is the act of turning them into a deity, then the persona is the relentless effort to turn yourself into a devoted worshipper. This is where the illusion becomes two-sided. You're not only assigning them a role, you are forcing yourself into one as well. Imagine your relationship as a vast stage, the spotlight fixed on you, every gesture under scrutiny. You're handed the role of the perfect partner, someone agreeable, undemanding, endlessly understanding, someone who sacrifices their own needs for the happiness of the other. You memorize your lines. "It's fine. I'm okay. As long as you're happy," and deliver them flawlessly. Behind the curtains, the true motive has been rehearsed for years. Since childhood, you were taught that love is something earned, that you must be good, useful, pleasing to deserve it. The fear of abandonment, the terror of being not enough, has woven itself into your bones, turning you into an actor forever chasing applause from an audience of one. But the tragedy begins when the play goes on for too long. Day after day, you perform until, when the lights finally dim and you retreat backstage, you glance into the mirror and fail to recognize the person staring back. Who were you before you took this role? What do you truly want? What do you actually feel? Somewhere along the way, you've forgotten. The mask, once a choice, becomes a prison. Cracks begin to form, not because it's fragile, but because it's suffocating you. Every time you swallow a no to keep the peace, every time you smile through the shattering of your heart, your emotional energy bleeds away. The exhaustion you feel isn't just from conflict, it's from the constant, unrelenting pretense. Then comes the cruel paradox. You finally receive the acceptance you've been striving for, but it's not for you. It's for the mask. They are loving the role, not the actor. And the more they love you, the more crushing the loneliness becomes. They are close enough to touch, yet impossibly far from knowing you. You've gained their approval, but you've lost the possibility of genuine connection. Slowly, the mask fuses with your skin. Your boundaries blur. Their hobbies become yours. Their dreams take priority. Your voice, once a clear and steady sound, shrinks to a faint whisper until it falls silent altogether. You're not just at risk of losing a relationship, you're in danger of losing yourself entirely. And here's the truth. The human soul cannot be imprisoned forever. Even under layers of compliance and performance, the real you fights to breathe. It fights in quiet ways at first, a twinge in your chest, a restless feeling you can't name. But the tension between the mask you wear and the self you truly are becomes a kind of civil war waged inside you. This inner war has symptoms, signals that slip past your defenses. You may call it anxiety, panic attacks, sleepless nights where your mind races until dawn. You may feel a strange agitation even when nothing is wrong on the surface. But Carl Jung would call it something else entirely, the cry for help of a soul that is suffocating. Your body knows the truth long before your mind is ready to admit it. The tightness in your chest, the constant fatigue, the way joy feels like a distant memory. All of these are not weaknesses to hide, but warning flares sent up by the parts of you you've been silencing. This is where the illusion begins to fracture, not because they changed, but because your soul refuses to keep living behind the mask, and that refusal, that inner revolt, will be the first spark that leads you toward reclaiming the self you've been forced to abandon. And here is where the real transformation begins, not in changing the world around you, but in changing how you see your suffering. You call it anxiety, that tightness in your chest when you wait for a message that never comes. Those long, sleepless nights spent replaying worst-case scenarios until your mind feels frayed and raw. You label it as weakness, a flaw in your character, a malfunction to be fixed, or a noise to be silenced at any cost. But Carl Jung would tell you this: you've been seeing it through the wrong lens. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is the most loyal messenger your soul could ever send. It is not a symptom of sickness, but a sign of life. It is living proof that your authentic self is still fighting to breathe, still refusing to completely surrender to the mask you've been wearing. When you stop treating it as a curse and start recognizing it as a guide, your role changes. You're no longer a passive victim of anxiety. You become an active interpreter of its message. Imagine your soul as a house. Somewhere inside it, a fire has been smoldering, quietly spreading through the walls. That fire is self-betrayal. Every time you said yes while your heart screamed no. Every boundary you allowed to be crossed. Every legitimate need you shoved aside. Every suffocating day you spent performing in a role that was never yours to play. This is the fire of living out of alignment with yourself. And anxiety. Anxiety is the fire alarm. The blaring siren is your pounding heartbeat. The flashing red lights are that restless, on-edge sensation you can't quite name. The smoke that catches in your lungs is the constriction in your chest. Our instinct, almost always, is to shut the alarm off, to make it stop so we can go back to sleep, so we can slip back into the illusion that everything is fine. But your soul knows better. It refuses to let you sink into that false comfort. It keeps the alarm screaming until you wake up, until you admit the danger, until you search for the flames before the house is beyond saving. The question then is not, how do I make my anxiety disappear? The question is, what truth is this anxiety trying to show me that I've been avoiding? If your heart races and you can't seem to be still, maybe your soul is desperate to escape a life or relationship that no longer fits who you are. If your chest feels tight and your breath shallow, perhaps you are forcing yourself into a space, a role, a set of expectations that is far too small for you to truly live in. If you find yourself obsessively checking your phone for messages, it isn't simply weakness or dependency. It's your mind frantically seeking external validation because it has lost touch with the safety that should come from within. You're checking again and again to see if the fire has been put out in someone else's eyes because you no longer trust your own sense of safety. Listening to the alarm is the first step. Now you know there is a fire, but putting it out at its source means finding what's feeding it. And it isn't in the living room where you showcase the neat and polished pieces of yourself, the persona. It's in the basement of your mind, the place you've thrown everything you decided was too ugly, too shameful, too unacceptable to be seen. Your anger, your envy, your fear, your secret longings. That dark, damp basement is where all the fuel for your emotional fires is stored. And in Jungian psychology, this hidden space has a name, the shadow. If you want to be truly free, free from the alarms, free from the constant heat of the flames, you must be willing, even determined, to walk down those steps into the darkness and face what you've been running from. Because only when you confront it, acknowledge it, and claim it as yours, can you begin to put out the fire for good. And yet, you find yourself asking over and over, why this person? Why am I always drawn to the ones who are unavailable, the ones who hurt me, the ones who try to control me? You tell yourself it's just your type, or bad luck, or maybe you're simply foolish in love. But Carl Jung would offer a far more unsettling answer. It is not chance. It is a choice. Not a choice made by your logical mind, but one made by the deepest, most hidden part of you. It is the choice of the shadow, and that truth forces you to pause, because it suggests there is an unseen force inside you steering the most intimate decisions of your life without your awareness. The shadow is not evil. It is simply everything you've been taught to reject about yourself. As a child, you were told that anger was bad, that wanting too much was selfish, that showing weakness was shameful. And so, to be loved and accepted, you took all those unacceptable parts, your anger, your power, your defiance, your need to be seen, and you packed them into a suitcase, locked it tight, and threw it down into the basement of your mind. But throwing something away doesn't make it disappear. The energy of those buried parts remains. It doesn't sit idle. It moves, it hums, it creates a magnetic pull that operates far outside your conscious control. And then, one day, you meet them. Why does the attraction feel so intense, almost fated? Because they are a perfect mirror for that locked suitcase. They embody outwardly the qualities you've been denying inwardly for years. You are drawn to what you suppress if you are the one who always pleases, who never says no. You will be magnetized to someone selfish, someone who unapologetically puts themselves first, because they hold the very power to refuse that you abandoned long ago. If you have silenced your anger and built your identity on being calm and agreeable, you may find yourself falling for someone who burns hot, who is unafraid to erupt, because they live out the emotional fire you've been too afraid to release. And just as powerfully, you reject in others what you cannot accept in yourself. The traits you despise most in them often point directly to your own shadow. You hate their controlling nature. Ask yourself, what part of me is desperate to take control of my own life, but hasn't dared? You resent their vulnerability, their constant need for reassurance. Ask, when did I decide that my own needs were unacceptable, that I must never ask for help? Your soul has no interest in watching you live half a life. It longs for wholeness. That is why it keeps placing these mirrors in your path. Not to punish you, but to provoke you into looking directly at the suitcase in the basement. Each relationship is an invitation to reclaim the parts you've disowned. The message is always the same. This is you, too. You can't keep denying it. Bring it home. Make it part of you again. Because until you do, you'll remain caught in the loop. You'll swap names, faces, and settings, but the pattern will repeat. You'll tell yourself it's bad luck, or just the way things are, when in reality, it's your shadow leading you back to the same lesson you've refused to learn. So the real question is no longer, why do I attract them? The question becomes, how do I stop being pulled by this invisible magnet? Jung's answer was simple, but not easy. What you resist persists. The only way to end the cycle is not to run from the darkness, but to turn toward it. That means walking down into the basement. It means unlocking the suitcase and daring to look at what's inside. It means meeting the anger, the power, the need, the desire, the vulnerability you've abandoned, and realizing they were never here to destroy you. They were always here to make you whole. And now, you find yourself standing before the heavy door to the basement of your mind. You know what's down there. A shadow. An invisible magnet quietly shaping your choices, pulling you toward patterns you swore you'd never repeat. Your first reflex is panic. You want to slam the door shut, bolt it, and run. You want to erase the monster, pretend it never existed. But here, Jung offers one of the most piercing truths in depth psychology. What you resist persists. The more you fight the shadow, the more power you give it. The more you pretend it's not there, the louder it will knock, speaking through wrong turns, destructive relationships, and the silent hum of anxiety that never leaves you. Freedom, then, is not found in waging war against the darkness. It's found in turning toward it, sitting with it, and listening. The goal is not perfection without flaw. It's wholeness, the kind that comes only when you embrace even the parts you once called unacceptable. Think of it as the alchemy of the soul. In ancient alchemy, the aim was to transform base metals like lead into gold. Your shadow, your anger, envy, fear, vulnerability is the lead, heavy, dark, and seemingly without value. The fire that transforms it is conscious acceptance, the courage to look discomfort in the eye without flinching. And the gold, it isn't something newly created. It's the essence that was there all along, waiting to be purified. Your anger, once transformed, becomes the force to set boundaries and protect what matters. Your fear becomes a compass, pointing you toward the life that calls to you most. This transformation begins with facing the shadow directly. The next time an unacceptable emotion rises, envy at someone's success, rage when you feel dismissed, pause, breathe, name it without judgment. This is envy. This is anger. That simple act of naming creates a small distance, reminding you that you are not the feeling itself. You are the one who witnesses it. The second step is understanding. Instead of turning away, speak to the emotion as if it were a wounded child. To anger, you might ask, "What are you trying to protect? Which of my boundaries has been crossed?" To envy, "What longing in me are you pointing to? What potential am I refusing to acknowledge?" To the fear of abandonment, "Where did you first appear in my life? How are you reminding me to create safety and love from within?" The final step is to redirect its energy. Once you understand the message, channel it into something that builds instead of breaks. Anger can become the resolve to say no clearly, to guard your time and space. Envy can become the drive to act on your own dreams rather than compare yourself endlessly to others. Fear can become a reminder to nurture yourself, to anchor your happiness in your own presence. Over time, as you repeat this process, the shadow changes shape. It stops feeling like an enemy hiding in the dark and becomes something else. A guide, a teacher, a well of energy that works with you instead of against you. You're no longer a puppet pulled by invisible strings. You're the one holding them, and this is where the deeper journey begins. Because integrating the shadow is not the final destination, it's the foundation. It's the groundwork for the most important path Jung described. Individuation, the lifelong process of returning to your true center and becoming fully, unmistakably yourself. That journey, Carl Jung reminds us, is the highest calling of a human life. He called it individuation, not a path toward flawlessness, but a return to wholeness. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming yourself in the most complete, unshakable, and authentic way possible. Before that transformation, you might live like a small boat adrift in a vast ocean. Your joy, your worth, and your very identity rise and fall with the changing weather of other people's approval. A text message can feel like sunshine breaking through clouds, while silence can feel like a storm that swallows you whole. You have no engine, no rudder, only the tides of external validation, carrying you wherever they please. Individuation is the decision to no longer be a boat at the mercy of the waves. It is the moment you search for land, claim a place to stand, and begin to grow roots. The soil you root into is self-awareness. Every time you integrate a hidden part of your shadow, your roots dig deeper into that inner ground. Every time you set a clear, honest boundary, Your trunk strengthens, your branches stretch higher, your presence becomes steadier. Eventually, you become a great tree. You still feel the rain, the wind, the changing seasons, but storms no longer rip you from the earth. You no longer wait for passing boats to dock in order to feel real. You're grounded in your own being, casting shade and offering shelter without fear that someone's absence will make you fall. Your strength is not borrowed from the outside, it grows from within. And with that inner rooting comes a profound shift in how you relate to others. Perhaps in the past, your unspoken belief was, I need you to complete me. I'm half, and you are my missing half. Without you, I am nothing. That is the language of dependence, of survival. But through individuation, that inner truth changes. I am whole as I am. I enter a relationship not to be filled, but to share the fullness I already carry. I choose you, not because I need you to breathe, but because I want to walk alongside you. One of the clearest signs that you are living from this wholeness is your capacity to be alone without fear. Solitude stops being a hollow emptiness you scramble to escape. It becomes a sacred space, a place where you can hear your own voice without distortion, where you can tend to your own needs without guilt. And when you no longer fear your own company, you will never again settle for a connection that compromises your truth just to avoid the silence. Something else shifts too, the invisible magnet inside you. When you integrate your shadow, you stop being drawn to the same toxic mirrors that once reflected your wounds. The old patterns dissolve because the part of you that needed them no longer exists in the same form. In their place, you begin to attract those who are also rooted in wholeness, those who can meet you as an equal rather than a savior or a captor, those who see and respect the person you truly are. Not a mask, not a role, not a projection. And so, when the storm-tossed boats drift away, you understand that it is not a loss to mourn, but a natural unfolding. You have simply moved into a different current. The relationships that once fit your unhealed self cannot follow you into your healed life. This is not rejection. It is alignment. Individuation offers you the most priceless gift, the freedom to choose consciously. You are no longer a victim of unconscious pulls, no longer a passenger on someone else's ship. You are the architect of your inner world, the gardener of your own roots. And now, with this awareness alive in you, you arrive at the final threshold. There is one last deliberate act, one choice that seals the work you have done. It is the act of letting go, not from weakness, not from exhaustion, and not from defeat, but from strength, from the deep, immovable wholeness that allows you to release with an open hand, knowing that nothing essential can ever be taken from you. You are no longer clinging to survive. You're choosing to set yourself free. Once, letting go came from a place of weakness. Maybe you've tried it before, but it was the kind of letting go that was born out of defeat, resentment, and exhaustion. You were running away from pain while still dragging it behind you like a shadow sewn into your skin. You thought you were freeing yourself, but in truth, you were only escaping in circles. That kind of letting go isn't liberation. It's a temporary pause in the storm, a way of shutting your eyes without truly waking up. But now, after walking through the deepest corridors of your own mind, after sitting with your shadow instead of banishing it, the meaning of letting go has transformed completely. This is no longer an act of surrender to loss. This is your graduation, the final step in a long initiation. This is not collapse. It is a conscious, unshakable choice built on the truths you've uncovered. It is a declaration of self-respect and wholeness, a statement that you will no longer betray yourself to keep someone else close. You're not giving up. You're standing in your power. Letting go now is like closing a chapter in the book of your life. They, and everything you went through together, will always be a chapter you carry. It is not something to rip out, because those pages hold the very lessons that led you here. Conscious letting go means reading it one last time with clear eyes and an open heart, thanking it for both the beauty and the wounds, and then, after one deep, grounding breath, closing the book. You place it gently on the shelf, and you turn toward a blank page waiting to be written. It is also like cutting free a heavy anchor. Holding on to someone who harms you is like trying to sail with a massive weight chained to the ocean floor. You push forward with all your strength, but the chain keeps you fixed in place, wearing you down until even the waves feel like walls. Letting go, in its truest form, is taking the knife of truth and severing that rope. The moment it snaps, you might feel a moment of emptiness, a strange lightness where the weight used to be. But soon after, you feel the wind return to your sails, and you realize you are finally moving. Now is the time to turn that decision into something you can touch, something that marks the threshold between the old and the new. Create your own small ritual. Take a sheet of paper and write their name, or the patterns and fears you are ready to release. Let the words carry the gratitude, the anger, the last truths you need to speak. Thank them for the lessons. Say goodbye without leaving any doors open. Or, if words aren't enough, stand before a mirror. Meet your own eyes, steady and unflinching, and say aloud, I, your name, choose to release myself from this bond. I choose wholeness. I choose freedom. I choose myself. Then, give the choice a physical symbol. Burn the paper and watch the smoke rise. Tear it into pieces and scatter them in the wind. Bury it deep in the soil so it can transform into something new. Let the action mirror the internal shift. This is how you cut the anchor, not only in your mind, but in your reality. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That is what this moment is about. This goodbye is not a curse. It is an initiation. It is the closing of one door so that another can open onto the life that was always meant for you. The space that used to be filled by their absence will now be filled with your own presence. So the question is, when the rope is gone and the horizon lies wide open, where will you sail? When the chapter is closed and the pen rests in your hand, what will you write about the person you are becoming? The choice is yours now, not because you have to make it, but because you are free to. And that freedom, hard-earned, fully claimed, is the real gift you carry forward. When you step back and see the whole journey we've walked together in this video, you realize this wasn't just about how to heal from heartbreak or how to let go of pain. It was about returning to your true center, as Jung taught, and learning that self-love is not a luxury. It's the foundation of your freedom. We explored how projection creates the illusion of perfect love, how the persona keeps you locked in roles that suffocate you, how anxiety is not your enemy but your soul's alarm, how the shadow holds the roots of your emotional trauma, and how individuation transforms toxic love into a deeper connection with yourself. If there's one practice I want you to take into your daily life, it's this. When you feel that familiar pull towards someone or something that drains you, pause. Place your hand on your heart. Ask, what truth am I avoiding right now? Listen without judgment. This single act of self-awareness psychology is a quiet revolution. Over time, it becomes the emotional detachment technique that frees you, not by force, but by truth. So, as you leave this video, remember, you're not broken. You don't need fixing. You're simply in the process of remembering who you are beneath the noise. Share your own story in the comments, your moments of letting go, your battles with self-doubt, your breakthroughs. You never know who might need to hear your words today. And if this message spoke to you, subscribe for more weekly insights drawn from Carl Jung and timeless psychology. Because every time you choose to look inward, you're building a life that is truly your own. This is not just content, it's a compass back to yourself.